Hey everyone, welcome back to Part of the Game, or welcome if this is your first time watching. I'm your host, Allison Gaskins. I'm joined again today by two familiar faces on Part of the Game. First, Franco Macheo, producer of CT Sports Now on Vantage Sports Net, and Division I basketball player, Tykeera Carter. But one new face on our show is Chris Carter, another Division I athlete, which you'll find out later on, very fitting for this topic of conversation. He's a track and field athlete. The Carters are not related here. I don't know if you guys get that a lot because you're both athletes at Sacred Heart.
Yes.
But the topic, like I had just kind of teased, is involving the NCAA. It's something that has graced the social media presence all over the place, maybe because this specific athlete has a huge brand on social media. I'm talking about Donald De La Haye, the UCF kicker who has his own YouTube channel, Deestroying, where he is using some of his football image and likeness into creating his YouTube channel, and he is thus profiting off of it because he is gaining anywhere from 6 figures of views and up. So this kid, he's making a profit for himself. He's a marketing major at UCF, so he claims that he is just learning and applying what he's learning in his courses. Guys, first thoughts on this. NCAA ruled him ineligible for the upcoming season because of this profit on his YouTube channel.
They not only ruled him ineligible, but they stripped him of his scholarship entirely. So now this is a student that kind of has to drop out of college out of necessity because he doesn't have the means to pay out of pocket for this education.
But let's clarify. Hold on. Not necessarily NCAA. It was UCF that took his scholarship.
Oh, it was UCF.
And it was only because he didn't agree to the monetization. So the negotiation of his new contract. So basically telling him this is what you can and can't do on YouTube. And all they were telling him is you can create funny skits, you can do whatever you want, you just can't have UCF in it, you can't have UCF football in it. That's it.
And not only that, they were asking him to give back all of the money he had already earned. So if you spent it on something, that's money that you're now having to scramble to come up with and pay back to the university and the NCAA.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that is the part that is the most absurd because you don't know this kid's living situation outside of UCF. He's making this money obviously for a cause, you know what I mean? He has to provide for himself at the end of the day. So I think that's wrong on the university's part.
Yep.
A little bit of a background though on De La Haye. So he was a walk-on. He's a kicker at UCF, and when he came to university, he probably wasn't planning on getting a scholarship, so he was trying to make money elsewhere. And when he did receive that scholarship, he didn't take out a student loan. So now all of a sudden, what is he supposed to do? Take out a new student loan because he's not receiving the money that he had already anticipated for the upcoming seasons? Actually, he has started his own GoFundMe page. They've raised about, I think, $9,000 on it so far out of his $30,000 goal. So it just shows people are supporting him. People are believing in what he's fighting for these student athletes who are, in a sense, being taken somewhat of an advantage of either by their university or by the NCAA.
No, I mean, sorry to interject, but do you think he's necessarily being taken advantage of when he was given the choice to either do this or keep his scholarship? At the end of the day, I think De La Haye should have focused more on his long-term goals and should have, just stayed in school, basically. He was a backup kicker. He had a full ride, and he's going to college for free. Now you have to deal with life's realities and its harshness, and instead of having to take out a loan, you can just go to class for free and not deal with anything. Yes, at the end of the day, it cost him his YouTube likeness and his platform, but if he's a marketing major and a student, he could have graduated with a degree and he could have used that platform to reach further heights and further success. I mean, he would have made twice as more money, later on in the future, post-graduation. So I think he should have been patient and not as impulsive, and his fans would have supported him. I really think that if he had true and loyal fans in a fan base, they would have followed.
Hold off till he
they would have followed.
To post those types of videos.
At the end of the day, I think he should have realized that he went to college for a reason. It's to get a degree and not to be a YouTube sensation.
Well, I object in a sense where you have to stand up for how you feel. I understand that there are rules and regulations, but some rules and regulations aren't right. And I just think that is one of the rules and regulations that shouldn't be so pushed upon. I think this world is full of social media. So if I want to make a YouTube page and I profit off of it, what is it to you? And so I think that is the understanding that
Great question.
You know, some people really can't come to grips with, like, why is the NCAA so involved? That's your outside life. Now, if it comes down to something like drugs, like, yes, that is your job as an NCAA. Now, my YouTube page, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I think just, and
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Franco.
And I think the point you were arguing is kind of seeing the situation from a micro. So that's the decision he had right in front of him when all this went down. And I kind of disagree because I think this might be a blessing in disguise for him in the fact that the promotion and the press that he's getting because of the NCAA stripping him of the scholarship, or UCF or whoever did, and the money that he was making off of YouTube. You could argue that for a backup kicker that maybe had no future in the NFL, and who's actually looking to pursue a career in media or in YouTube, and video is the thing that he's most passionate about. This marketing thing that's going on around him right now might just be a blessing in disguise and might propulse him to heights that maybe on his own, just kind of behind the scenes, he might not have reached. But from a macro perspective, I think this is just super crass from the NCAA part, because this is an entity, $1 billion entity that is still guiding itself and ruling over kids with rules that were put in place when the NCAA had $0 in profit. So you're pretty much talking about a company that started with one employee from the ground zero, no profit, and it's still ruling over its employees, thousands of employees, now with billions of dollars in profit, and is treating them the same exact way. Like, that's just archaic if I've ever heard of archaic. So I think from a macro perspective, the NCAA in this regard is just using its power in a blatant manner.
Well,
I will have
you
to
just made-
disagree. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I will only have to disagree because as an athlete myself, I didn't have any scholarship. So I didn't have any athletic scholarship. I did, my education was funded through, financial aid, etc. So, and I still abided by those laws. And so once they set, not necessarily laws, but guidelines and rules. So once they set that precedent, I followed. And I think that as a student athlete, you should be aware and read the bylaws because they're there for a reason, and know your rights, basically. Know your rights and what you're able to do and you can't do. So I don't necessarily think it was crass of them, old-fashioned maybe, not crass, but I think it should be revised, looked at and revised
That's my
and
point.
amended. Because it is out of date, and you do have a lot of popular students out here that are going to school and gaining just regular popularity just for being who they are and being that star athlete, and then they're getting outside endorsements. And I think it should be up to that student athlete's choice in their own decision whether they want to accept that money or not on their own behalf. Because like Takira said, we all have financial issues back at home. We all have something going on. So we all need a helping hand at times, and I get that. But yeah, it's definitely outdated, and I vote for an amendment.
That's what I wanted. That's what I was trying to bring up. I'm wondering if, in this digital age where there's social media platforms everywhere you look, they're up and coming every single day, people are profiting off of that. And I know it's funny because as a society, we're very financially driven, and a lot that we've been talking about today so far has been the money issue involved in this, and him receiving the money, and the NCAA profiting possibly off of his own image and likeness. But what about athletes being able to use and sell their personalities and their passion? He's now having to possibly dim down his own passion. Like, what if the NFL doesn't work out for him one day? What if he did get injured and lost his scholarship and he doesn't have anything to fall back on? So that's the issue that I think I personally am having with this, because it's more so, should a student athlete be able to express themselves and sell their own personalities? They have been given this platform as an athlete. Why can't they use it?
And going off that point, which I agree, is that you mentioned that the NCAA and its rules, and they're old-fashioned, and they're pretty much clashing against the new wave of communication that is social media. So when you say follow the rules, and it goes back to the old cliche of NFL players where you make the argument where they should smoke marijuana because what they're doing for a living is completely horrible to your body, and that's a way maybe for you to alleviate some pain, but it's against the rules. So if you want to be a professional NFL player, you might as well follow the rules, because if not, you're going to be suspended. So in this case, the language in the NCAA, and I'm not completely familiar with it, I'm sure you guys are more familiar, how does it prohibit you against specifically monetizing on YouTube? Or because I'm sure his intentions weren't, I'm going to make a YouTube channel and profit off of my personality and my likeness.
No, it's out of pure
He was just
fun.
making
You're
videos.
a kid at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But he
exactly.
chose to major in.
So that's why the NCAA keeps making headlines, is because they have the same 4, 5, 6 old-fashioned rules that were put in place hundreds of years ago, it seems like at this point, but they keep on implementing and putting their hands on stuff and making kind of amendments that are just baffle me. Because by the letter of the law, and again, I'm not as well versed on the letter of the law as you guys, I can see how a 21-year-old kid might be a little confused as to what they can and cannot do to earn some money.
I think that's why you ask questions. You have a compliance director. I just think, like, as a student athlete, you have a role. You need to play your role, and that is to go to class and do your job on the field, on the court, or wherever you need to do. You have two jobs, as a student and as an athlete, and you should focus on that.
But at the end of the day, you have to remember that, yes, you're going to school for free. Yes, you're going to class, and yes, you're doing that. But what about your life outside of it? You still have a life. And that is the part where they are, I feel like, intruding in. Like I said, there are the proper regulations that you're going to have as far as drug abuse, substance abuse, stuff like that. And that is fine, and that's what's supposed to be. But I feel like YouTube is taking it too far. And I feel like your money is your money. As long as you're not going and spending it on things that are, pretty much absurd and going to be used for the wrong reasons, then you let the boy do what he's going to do. He wasn't bothering anybody.
Yeah.
Wasn't bothering anyone, but what he also said in a Sports Illustrated interview, he was saying he thought he was spreading the positivity, bringing good reputation and a good name to the school. So in essence, if this is done correctly in what De La Haye wanted it to be, the school could have profited off of it, UCF and the NCAA, off of people then coming to watch him play football because he's a name, just like Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, just like all these other athletes, Tim Tebow. People came to watch them. How are they not able to?
Well, but a couple of points, and I think you bring up a good one. One, I don't think the NCAA has to deter it. They just choose to deter it. Because I just think those are two different things. And the reason I think they choose to deter it is for the point that you bring up right now, and it's because if kids start forming YouTube channels, if kids start profiting off of Instagram, of Twitter, YouTube, then that's kind of money that's indirectly coming out of the NCAA's pocket, because all of a sudden...
How is it coming out of their pocket?
Because all of a sudden the kids don't need the NCAA, and the NCAA aren't necessarily using the kids and having all of the power over them, because all of them individually are profiting, and they just kind of become kind of individuals and their own kind of entity, and they kind of distance themselves from what is the NCAA umbrella.
Well, the NCAA is making plenty of money anyway.
Yes. Right.
You have
Aside
the NCAA tournament every year, and this is just from a basketball standpoint. You have them putting kids' names on jerseys. How aren't they you're already profiting off a kid's name, but a kid can't profit off of you to help your university in return? That's where I feel like it's wrong.
But I see, just to piggyback off of what you said, Ty. I mean, but he didn't cash the checks for charity or charitable purposes or anything.
He doesn't have to. It's his money.
He did it for himself. He cashed it for himself for his own personal gain. So I think that might be where underlying problem might be, is because he didn't do it to give back to the school. He did that for his own self. So he's saving his money, he's spending on, and he's buying on whatever. That could be a problem. Who's to say? I don't know. But I think that definitely plays a role as to him collecting the money, one, and how it's being spent. I
think the big issue is where to draw the line. I don't think anyone expected social media to become as huge and as influential as it has become over the course of the past couple of years so quickly. But the main thing, another thing that kind of falls under this umbrella is the NCAA and these universities using the image and likeness of former players to continue to profit off of that. It's happening at Ohio State. Chris Spielman, he is actually in a current lawsuit with Ohio State because his image and likeness, along with Archie Griffin, he was a two-time Heisman winner, are being put on these large posters throughout Ohio Stadium, and Honda is sponsoring it. So clearly the university is making money off of this, but Chris, Griffin, neither one of these guys and anyone else featured on those posters are seeing a penny. Is that okay?
And that's precisely the point. I guess maybe I worded it a little bit complicated, but that's kind of the point I was trying to make, in that if the student athlete all of a sudden gains the power of his own image and Honda stops sponsoring the Ohio State billboard and instead goes directly to the source at the YouTube channel, I'm just going to sponsor your videos, because now the fans are coming straight to you. They're not necessarily walking by the stadium. Then that's kind of money that maybe not now, but 30, 40 years down the line, if enough kids grow enough of a high profile, then that's where it might start being problematic. But the universities just want to keep it all to themselves and keep the likeness, keep everyone on marching on the same path.
But is that
That's like you said.
that
Where do you
appropriate?
draw the
Yeah.
line?
Well,
That's
I don't
not
think
right.
I don't think you draw the line. I think you brought up something that sometimes we're so accustomed to it now, and it seems so simple. But social media is huge. Those platforms are humongous now, and what might seem silly for some, it's an actual job for others. Like that kid is actually earning a living, and that's a legit way to earn a living nowadays. Like kids are becoming
YouTube
influencers.
treats
It's
their
a
Kids are
legit
becoming
way.
nicely.
videographers,
legit way.
and maybe it's not YouTube in the long term, but he's honing some skills, and that's kind of his video resume that might lead to other opportunities. So what might seem silly for the 50, 60-year-olds in charge of the entire operations, for us 24, 25, 21, 18-year-olds, those are real jobs. That's how kids are making money nowadays.
And it's like, what am I going to school for? Am I going to school to sit here and write in the classroom but not apply it? And I feel like
That's
he's
what they've always
applying
said, students first, athletes second. I don't know if you guys have learned that mantra, but they've like,
It
we're
switches in
student athletes.
college. Trust me, it switches in college.
That's what they say. Is it